TGIF, everyone. It's Techstrong Gang. Happy Friday. We're happy that you're here. Question for you. Has Elon left the building? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Welcome back to Techstrong Gang, everyone. Happy Friday. Lisa Martin here, holding down the fort, trying to do my best Alan Schimmel impression. I'm joined by my gang members today. We need a sign, guys, like a gang sign.
A gang sign?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No tattoos.
As long as it's not the Tesla symbol. We're
Oh,
No
God,
Tesla
yeah,
symbol.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
How about the Tesla International not sign through it?
There you go.
Sorry, Elon.
do not enter.
Sorry,
the
Elon. We're
vehicle.
going to be talking about that.
Yeah, that's
Mitch
later.
Ashley joins us. Not in Colorado, no guitars behind you, but I've heard a lot of guitar stories since we've gotten to finally meet in person.
I've had several people come and say, "Where's the guitar?"
Yes.
You know, so it's kind of my brand now, I guess.
It is your brand, VP Practice Lead of DevOps at Futurum. And I'm going to pull my best Alan high atop his perch.
Oh, boy, here we go again.
Top of the Golden Gate Bridge, where he surveys everything going on in Silicon Valley. And he's been digging into everything this week in cybersecurity RSA. John Swartz.
Oh, hey, thanks, Lisa. That was actually, I
really
would
good.
venture to say that was better than when Alan
I
said.
think
But
I
don't-
think you've
don't
raised the bar for him.
Yeah, don't tell Alan, though. We don't want him to see this.
Nobody
So
knows your
speaking
secrets.
about high perch, last
Yes.
night I went to this reception at the Salesforce Tower, which I hadn't
were
been
high
to before.
perch.
And it's about the 62nd, 65th floor. It's incredible.
I bet.
Incredible dominant signs and views of the Bay Area. But anyway, it's good to be here. And I want to say it's great to meet you in person, even
Yeah.
though we live close to one another.
do.
It's good to see Mitch again, as always. And the
Yeah.
AV
First
team.
time we've met in
The first
person.
time we've met, yes.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
And they're both taller than they appear on TV, guys.
I
gotta
always
tell
hear
you.
that. Yeah, it is also. I want to thank the AV guys. These guys like travel all over the country.
Rob,
Killing it.
Tremendous
Ryan,
job.
Caleb,
Damn it.
Paul.
The whole team here.
They make it look so easy.
That's
They make
because
us
they're
look
running
good.
on lollipops. They're giving out lollipops here at RSA, and they are
I
living on
understand-
sugar.
Yes, I understand they love clutter on top of the desk too. That's
And
a real favorite of
handsy.
theirs.
Got to be handsy.
and I got to do a shout out to Jody, who is our
Jody
on-site
Ashley.
person organizing a lot of the events
can't
and
do this
things that we
without
do
her.
early in the week.
Exactly.
She's my wife too, but that's she
Superstar.
keeps the gears running as well.
Yeah.
So guys,
So
we've had such a cool week, and I want to hear, because you were literally at top of perch yesterday. So I want to see and hear everything that you've been seeing at RSA this week. There's so much news, so many surveys. But Mitch, we're going to be talking about MCP servers. This was a new term for me. I want to understand what's going on here, and will this lead to faster AI deployment? I mean, can AI deployment get faster?
Well, it's interesting. MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. There you go. Talk about that over dinner, right?
Yep.
It basically filled a big need, which is how do LLMs and agents talk to other resources, data, systems, applications, APIs, et cetera. How do you have a standardized way of doing that? And it was developed by Anthropic. They donated the code, open source. Everybody took it and ran with it because it filled a very specific need. It's got a little bit of security to authenticate and then talk to systems. And so all we hear about is MCP servers. This company, that company. Everybody's come out with an MCP server. It's almost not quite like AI inside, but sort of with AI, we also have a way to get access to this data. So it's security. So here's what I've been looking for at the show is, that's all good. How are we securing this stuff? Who's stepping up to do something about security with AI? And not just AI itself, but access to all the resources that you use, right? And so Salt Security came out with, hey, we have an app now that will monitor, or a product that will monitor MCP servers and what they're doing, what they're talking to, log some of that telemetry, and actually share it with other vendors. I'm not quite sure how that gets shared, but to kind of help all of us understand what's going on, because one of the first rules of security is, well, what are we securing? How do we know what it is we're trying to either protect or prevent against or prevent from attack? And so I think it's a good idea. I'm glad to see somebody stepping up. And there's been some other announcements too. Cisco made a nice announcement about donating an LLM that they created around security actions and analysis. So that's some good progress, but there's a lot more to go. We've got a lot of room to grow.
So, it's like a common thread. I like all of us, did a number of interviews this week. MCP came up at least 4 times as the biggest concern or potential threats. It was a recurring theme for, I think, ForcePoint, Palo Alto Networks, and it kind of underscored where we see things going and where we see the biggest, like in terms of ranking threats, is MCP the number one with the bullet, or so to speak? Are there other things that you came across that were of a raised concern, especially as we hurtle into AI?
Well, MCP got a lot of attention and gained a lot of traction fast. I mean, it's only been out, I think, about maybe 60 days. It's not like something that's been in development for months or years.
Yeah.
It would tell you how big of a need there was for agents and LLMs to talk to other data. And there is some security built into it, but there's also the other side of it of, well, how do you know what it's talking to, and how do you know that the data that it's using from that other system, it's now an attack vector, of course, right? It will and is getting attacked. The other part of it that's a little bit, good and bad about MCP is it's not like it's one universal thing that you talk to and it'll talk to everything else. What it really is a server with protocols that are tuned specifically to that vendor's service. So if I want to talk to Amazon and what it's doing, I have an Amazon or set of Amazon MPC service.
Okay.
If I want to talk to Google and its services, everybody has their own. So literally an application or an agent could have dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of MPC servers sitting out there that it's talking to. Of course, all this need to be maintained. And they all have vulnerabilities, need to be updated and upgraded. And so it adds a lot. It solves a problem, but it adds potentially a lot more complexity to it. So it's not the end solution, which that's fine, one step at a time. But I'm glad people are saying it.
This is what happened. No, it was interesting because I wasn't familiar with it, and it's this overriding concern or obsession with data security and silos and the communication, especially with AI agents and how they're going to work within organizations. It's all kind of a touch and go process, I guess, and they're learning as they move along. I mean, things will be broken and they'll be fixed. And we talked about, I remember it was how you mentioned it, the bolt-on approach versus
built in.
That was also a major theme that kept coming up.
But you bring up the fact that you're hearing concerns about MCP. Mitch, what is, if an MCP server is compromised, what's different? What could be exfiltrated?
So it's a gateway into what's happening inside an agent or LLM.
Okay.
So it's like you making a phone call, but not realizing it's not AT&T you're talking to. It's some hacker right on the other side of the phone line. This uses the same protocol, something called RESTful interfaces, which looks like a URL. It's a very common and very standard, easy to use for developers. So that's the nice thing. It's easy to develop. But what sits in front of that to protect you, right? Is there an application firewall? It's what we use to protect apps in those kind of situations. What do you do to protect your MCP servers? It's not really built into the protocol itself. So it's the other kind of wild card factor about AI is you hear about prompt injection.
Yes.
In other words, people
we talked about
sending data and actually it's a prompt or something that can bypass prompt or modify prompts or inject prompts. And we live in a world now where AI can actually create its own prompts as well. So there's a recursive reasoning effect to AI. In the model itself, you could tell AI, write a prompt for me to do the following. So someone could inject something, compromise an MPC server and say, that's very nice. Here's a set of things that will help bypass your security guardrails in the LLM. Now get me access to things that I shouldn't have access to. So it's such a kind of new front. It's not proven about how to secure all these different attack vectors. So I'm glad people are concerned about it.
It's also, I wonder, is it conceivable that we're going to see other acronyms or other types of technologies along the lines of MCP coming along where there's going to be a rush of insecurity in terms of feelings among the people within companies? Like, oh, this can add a dizzying amount of ability, but it also can come at a cost. I mean, that's always been the case with technology, though, right? There's always what it can do and what it unintentionally might do.
Right.
And how much you design security into it up front, right? And
Isn't that table stakes these days?
It is, but also there's also extended uses beyond what we intended or scenarios, or you can't account for everything either, right? And so it's an open protocol. Anthropic didn't copyright it or protect it. It's all under, I forget which, I think it's MIT license. So you can do what you want with it. The spec was very well written, which helps make it widely adopted. It'll evolve too. Now, will it bifurcate and become 25 different variations of that? Or will it kind of, the industry fall together and say, let's kind of keep this in the general direction? There's no standard body over it or open source project over it that's guiding and directing it. So we could have a bit of wild, wild west. Maybe we already there.
That's kind of the unsettling thing to me, is like piggybacking off of the Christie Nome.
I was thinking about that too.
Right. With
the
the diminished status of CISA, and while at the same time that's happening, we're putting ourselves on an island, and then at the same time that's happening, we've got all these new things like MCP coming along that could potentially muddy the waters and make things more. It's kind of a toxic stew of some sort that would raise alarms, I would think.
But just everything moves fast, and so so there's also agent to agent A2A protocol, which was introduced by Cisco and some other companies aligned with it, which is now at an agent level. How do we discover what capabilities agents have? How do you talk to them? How do you secure a connection to both invoke things at other agents or create subtask agents, things like that. So there's more things that are going to come along, to your point.
Yeah.
There was also I was talking to somebody who's doing a lot of work with Microsoft, and they're mentioning Microsoft's starting to talk more about the super agent concept. So you have an overriding agent that runs the other agents. It's interesting. They're almost taking the place of the human, so to speak. So that adds like another layer of uncertainty.
I can't help think about it. Have you ever seen the show Robot Wars on cable TV, where they control them, but the robots, one shoots fire, another's got a saw blade, and they try to take out the other robots.
Right. Okay.
That's kind of the environment we're headed to, as agents fight with each other.
That conceivably could happen, right? You have the agents arguing over what's best for a project, right? I mean, as they become more reasoning in their abilities.
See, Star Wars had the Clone Wars. Well, we have the Agentic Wars.
The Agent Wars, yes.
Agentic War.
Well, I think one of the themes this week is that just the speed with which everything is happening. I mean, this injection of fuel that ChatGPT brought on the scene just over 2 years ago.
November 2 years ago.
It was just
wasn't even on the lexicon of everybody.
Company has to have an AI story. What's your AI story? We don't know.
If you don't have one, make one up. I know of major companies that have done that. I have friends who work at these companies. Tell me, they say they make it up as they're going on, because if they don't, they're screwed.
Yes.
Right.
Well, customers are expecting it. What are you doing with AI?
Yeah.
How are you infusing AI into your technologies? It's going to help my business create value. So it's this expectation from a sales and marketing perspective, but it's also, you can kind of spot, especially from your perch, where there's hollowness to an AI story. But I do wonder if we look at, I always think, technology is inherently neutral. So it can be used for good, it can be used for bad, and that will probably never change. The acceleration, the speed, the cyber landscape changing and being spread in so many more vectors, and technology trying to stay up with laws and things like that. But if we look at MCP from a positive perspective, what are some real world examples that you can see where this will maybe be an accelerator of good agentic AI?
Well, everything in AI works on context, right? All the reasoning models, they have their logic and their algorithms and parameters of weights of how things are reasoned. But what it needs is context. It knows about what it's been trained on, but in an application, you usually have something else that you're trying to apply that to, not just a prompt to say, hey, create an outline for my next article or my next white paper. It's, here's information. I need data from that in order to take the next step in what this reasoning model is going to do. So that can be anything from, to book an airline ticket. Right? And you talk to things to find out what all the different possibilities are, and then take into, where's your profile, your past travel history. Okay, now I can see what your patterns are, what you like. Well, that's things not built into the models. You've got to bring that data into the agent or into the application that's going to apply that. So it's kind of, when I ran IT, what I would tell my team there, don't worry about shadow IT, because everyone will come to IT at some point for either security, single sign-on, or data, or other applications, because they'll work with this. Won't live in ether forever. We'll get to work with folks, and that's true for AI applications too. It needs data, but it needs more than just generally available data. It's going to have to be specific to a use case, application, business problem, app, etc.
Well, one thing is for sure, guys, the speed with which things are changing, never a dull moment here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to leave it here. We're going to come back talking about security, ransomware, clean rooms, disaster recovery, some news from Commvault. We'll be back after a short break. We're back on Techstrong Gang talking security, ransomware, disaster recovery, and clean rooms. Mitch, Commvault added factory settings capability to clean room recovery service. They also talked about an alliance with CrowdStrike. What's going on here? Clean rooms, what's the latest?
Well, clean rooms means lots of things. It could be a chip fab clean room, right? Or it could be a clean room where you reverse engineer something without violating IP protection if you're writing software. In this case, it's giving you a clean, secure, isolated environment in the case of ransomware, right? So whenever you're attacked, you're not only looking at what was attacked, but were other things compromised as part of it. Maybe data wasn't stolen from systems, but keystroke logging or other things, Trojan horses might have been embedded in applications and servers that weren't even you didn't think were part of what were attacked. In this case, how do I get that all cleaned up so that it can be back to full operational scale? One of the methods of recovering in their disaster recovery is to go to an offsite facility or a virtual facility, and that's where you do business. This is kind of the equivalent of that, all right, if I need to get back to a known good, that's my clean room. And that's what Commvault has done, is we'll create your cloud and your infrastructure environment for you. It's ready to go. It's not sitting in a warehouse somewhere in north of San Francisco. It's virtual. It's set up in the cloud, ready to go with your configuration, your infrastructure. So you virtually could switch things over and now operate in that environment.
So is CrowdStrike going to be? They're providing incident response services. Is that, how does that play into this service, into what Commvault's doing?
So it's interesting. I was in a session the other day, and I said to one of the vendors, it's not about prevention, it's more about response. We used to worry just about defense, right? We could protect it well enough, right, that something might happen, but we've got things well protected. Now everything, we have to assume eventually will get compromised. So it's almost like, you could play basketball, but just shooting hoops, but you got to have defense too. You got to have both. Mm-hmm. And so the response part of it is, not all of us are expert at the forensics and understanding what really happened. And we have the human element. It's like, this is a system Mitch managed. He may be a little self-conscious, or a lot, about what they're going to find out if he made a mistake or something. Or maybe we just don't know all the latest approaches and attacks and attack vectors. And, it's not just the data that they compromised or have access, but they destructed the backups and the backup of the backups. And so you use firms like CrowdStrike, and there are many others, who will do this incident response to do both the investigation, but also to get you to a place where you're back to a known good, you can start operating. Because the worst thing you could do, maybe the worst, is, okay, we had an incident, ransomware, something happened. Okay, good. We think we're all right. Stop operating here. We sort of contained it, but you didn't really, and now you're even in a worse condition because you really weren't at a place you could start operating securely. So so you say a lot of interesting things, Mitch. But
one that
and
really,
I pay you to say that.
no, it's true. No, it's really
I can vouch
true.
for him.
Pay him well.
He's right.
But
you both are very fine.
I'll take the payroll.
But you said we kind of reached this era where we went from, we know we can't prevent everything, to we have to respond. When did that happen? Or when did we reach that age? And was there an event that triggered that? Because I always assume that, we're going to try to, going to these press conferences, we're going to try to stop this and it'll never happen. It's which is a little bit unrealistic.
It is.
Rather than we'll try to stop as much as we can, but in the event it does happen, here's our response.
There wasn't like a seminal event of when this milestone occurred, and like a Log4j or something that brought this to our attention. I think it's a kind of the slow water warming up in the frog scenario of eventually we all realize that more and more every day we're hearing about data breaches and attacks that are successful.
Way too common.
And it happens to everybody. It's the largest banks to the smallest, mom and pop store, whatever. We don't hear about those, but at some point, I think all of us realized, look, there is no way to prevent this.
No.
Right. Not 100%.
It's not if.
It's not if.
When.
It's or when did it already happen?
Right.
Already happened.
And how often and what's it going to cost us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at some point you kind of say, all right, we've got to stop thinking one way of this is the only way to, let's put in a response process, incident response process, and just assume it's going to happen because we don't want it to. We're going to do our best to prevent it. But when it does, the worst thing we could then do is not be ready for it and say, who do we call? Well, Ghostbusters isn't available. Who do we call next?
Right.
Well, as a customer, I like the idea of at least being told that this happened. I mean, before these companies were required to report breaches, I remember going to a conference in Phoenix for LifeLock. And it was Kevin Mitnick was at this conference. It was a confab, and it was behind closed doors. And there were a number of maybe I should. Well, Walmart was one of the companies. I'll mention it. Walmart was one of the companies. There were some other major retailers. At this time they were not required to report, but they were saying, "How do we know we've been had? What do we do if this leaks out? How do we manage this crisis?"
Right.
And they were looking for consulting from Mitnick and some other folks. I was just a fly on the wall. They just let me watch it. But this is like a real concern. And they were acknowledging, Target was another one, they were acknowledging all sorts of problems. And this is free. So now, every other day, it seems, I get a postcard. Every day, something in the mail.
It happens all the time.
Like, here you've been compromised. If you'd like to, or you potentially been compromised.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
You've been compromised. You've potentially been compromised. We have your data, but we haven't compromised you yet. There's all kinds of scenarios.
I'd like to know that. Yeah.
And how far does it go? Before you know it. Well, there's so many people that do pay it, right? Even though
too many pay.
The ransomware thing is crazy, right?
Is.
I was thinking of was it Zscaler, one of these companies does a quarterly report, and companies are just like paying $25,000.
Yeah.
I think I heard it said like 50% of companies held for ransom paid the ransom, even though professionals will tell you don't do it. But ransomware is a household word now. I think a couple years ago I saw a stat, and I'm sure it's changed. I don't exactly know what the current number is, but like a ransomware attack happens once every 11 seconds. And I'm sure that time number is just going to go down. So that response plan is not a nice to have.
Oh, yeah, it's not
because
optional,
no one is safe.
Right.
That's the reality.
Well, ultimately, security, like everything else, is a business decision. It's like how much insurance do you buy?
Yep.
Under a situation where something has happened. You see it on the cop shows on TV. They say, don't pay the ransom to get your kid back from the kidnappers. But people do it, right? Because
out of fear.
I'm not going to risk it. And there's a financial business decision of what does it cost to pay the $250K to what they're asking for versus what we're going to have to go through.
Right.
And what's interesting is when you talk to people that do this for a living, the question is, well, are they going to give us back our data or not do anything if we pay it? They're just going to do it anyway.
It's going to perpetuate, right?
But actually, so it's a business for the bad guys too.
Oh yeah.
They're like they don't want to mess with you. They just want the money and move on.
Like all these like basic like ransomware or malware. And you think of AI, we're talking about accelerating and creating even a faster pace in tech. It does that here. It broadens the speed of attacks. It broadens the variety, the versatility of what they do.
And they're using AI too. I had somebody say, I think it was at a Cisco event. No, it wasn't at Cisco. Anyway, they made the comment of, by the way, we're worried about AI taking our jobs. AI's taking the bad guys' jobs.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So maybe there is a good point to
yeah, it's affecting us all. Let's put it that way. It's changing the game.
I will say, though, a lot of another theme that I've heard at RSA this week is there's a lot of software companies who are really working to make organizations proactive, aware of the security risks and the vulnerabilities so they can be proactive. There's a lot of also thematically fighting fire with fire, fighting AI with AI. I don't think we have a choice. It's just going to accelerate. There'll be more vectors, more applications, more software, more data. Nobody wants less data, slower, and less apps.
Well, and to your point, it's not a matter of if, it's when, it's happening, right?
Yes.
AI is part of.
Or to your point,
attack.
did it already happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Are we aware of this?
They're using AI. We have to use AI.
We do.
My point is, especially around securing AI, is we've gone through this sort of succession of when the cloud came up, security kind of put the kibosh and said, look, you don't want to put our data there. It's not secure yet. It took a couple of years, 2-3 years before everybody was, not everybody, but people started to be more comfortable moving things to all right, it's secure enough. Then COVID happened and everyone learned that, well, you know what, we can make security and business decisions and technology decisions in hours and days because we had to.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't have to go through that set up roadblocks until we finally give in because security will allow us to do it. Businesses are making big bets on AI. Futurum Group, some of our analysts, Diane and Nick Patience from our analysts, did a survey around CIOs but also CEOs. It was like close to 50% of already, this has been a few months ago now, already initiating AI projects, pilots in their organization. And it's one of those, it's kind of like setting off for the new world. Like we're going to fund, whichever explorer to go find the new world. We don't know what we're going to find there yet, but we know if we don't do it, somebody else will be able to discover it, right?
Yes.
And so meanwhile, us getting on the ship, we were like, okay, we got to figure this out.
They don't have a choice. They have to book their passage.
We got to figure this out.
Everyone has
and
to
we're going to equip
story.
ourselves the best we are. We're going to partner with the right people to get there, and we'll discover the things that are going to help us and the things we have to fight off on the way. It is.
Yes.
Exactly.
Speaking of journeys, cyber resilience. We talk about that. Every company talks about cyber resilience. It's not a destination. It's a process. Is what Commvault's doing, for example, how do you see that positively impacting a customer's journey to actually becoming cyber resilient? Or is that reality? Can an organization actually become resilient?
Yeah, the idea behind this is a great topic for Krista Case on our team, analyst on our team. Resilience, the way I think about it is resilience is being able to respond. You can plan for a lot of things, but how do you plan for the unexpected, right? And especially as you design systems, here's everything we can do to keep it up and keep it running. So we'll minimize any effect of someone attacking or us getting compromised. Then resilience takes that a step further of, how do we stay up even when we don't know what those attacks were going to be and what might have happened, so we can degrade service, but not shut down the business, right? And so things like what Commvault has done, things like AI, right? Redirecting traffic or responding to, building a kind of a self-healing kind of application or a network, something that can respond to events that happen, not just prevent them from happening, and then giving us data about what happened so we can fix it.
And in a weird way, CrowdStrike showed us how you can respond to something and retain and actually enhance your brand name in a weird way, despite this major breach they had. The way they handled it, and the full transparency, especially from George Kurtz.
Yes.
I mean, that to me is kind of significant in a sense that they're involved in this announcement, because their credibility, it's weird, in a weird way, it actually was enhanced after that
I think so
issue.
too.
And it's like in a brilliant way, the way they handled that.
You mentioned the word transparent, and that's what, especially in the age of security and AI, organizations have to be transparent. There has to be accountability, and they took it.
Yeah.
And it was also, agree exactly with what you said, it was also something could have happened to many other companies too, right? And that was a milestone event to recognize that, yes, we need more resilient systems. And Delta had a much different response than other airlines.
You read my mind. I was going to say, without throwing stones or casting stones, Microsoft and Delta, Microsoft just went mum, which is what they always do.
Delta went on defense.
Yes, that was Ed Bastian, the CEO.
The CEO.
He banks so much on that company and its technology use. He's keynoted at CES and pushed that so hard. So for him, it was a black eye in a sense.
Yeah.
But for Microsoft, and again, I won't, well, I'll say it. When these types of things happen, they put their head down and act as if nothing happens.
Do that.
And
Cannot do that.
Yeah, in that instance, I think they did. But
It's interesting. It also highlighted like, what do you do in a situation where you can't get to a device to physically change it, reset it, take something off of the device, be able to get it booted up? And it helped me expose me to some technology that Intel has that actually they can, with their chipsets, they actually can get access to the hardware without the operating system booting up, where you could securely, remotely get access to a network that's active, a NIC on the device, and also to the data, and be able to modify the OS or take a file off of the file system, do things to apply a patch essentially. So it will boot up. So the blue screen of death isn't actually the final resting place of your device until someone comes to rescue.
That's good to know.
You can do it remotely, and it's a really compelling, because there were companies that had that technology in place, and it's like, I did not know that. It makes it's good to know that.
Exactly.
That capability.
I think one thing's for sure, guys, we could talk about security, ransomware, clean rooms, DR. There'll never be a dull moment.
it's never going to go away.
We're going to end this here, but it's never going to go away. It's a flywheel, and we just got to hope that we can get ahead of the bad guys.
I think my message would be, we're at a much different place than we might have been 5 or 6 years ago, pre-COVID, where it's not nirvana. Not everybody's out of their silos, but security's at the table now to be able to talk about AI and how to secure it.
Yeah.
They're talking business to the business.
Business and
right? Not just
business
threats and FUDs, right?
Right.
They're understanding there's got to be business value and impact in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Not just insurance that we're buying for
Right.
something bad happening.
Right. That's what the board wants to know.
We're at a place, yes, where we can do productively, move forward on security initiatives and make much more progress faster, I believe.
That's a mic drop moment, Mitch. Security is at the table. We're going to take a short break and come right back talking about where's Elon going. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
We're back on Techstrong Gang. There's an interesting story in the Journal about Tesla potentially replacing Elon Musk. John, from your perch high above Silicon Valley,
Yes.
what do you know? What do you see?
Hey, nothing surprises me about Elon Musk. He is an attention monger. He is a brilliant scientist, but he's also a borderline psychopath. And I think here's what's going on. I think, based on what the Journal reported, the board of Tesla was considering replacing him in March. And I think that's significant because it was probably at his low ebb, and there have been many with him, low ebb in terms of his handling of Doge. It was Tesla stock was being eviscerated, hammered at least 40%,
At least this
at least
year alone.
50%. People were not buying Tesla cars. They were moving away from them. There are bumper stickers here in the Bay Area. There are Teslas everywhere, but I've seen bumper stickers that say, "I bought this before Elon took over Doge."
Yep.
Right? People are apologetic. The company knows this. They're getting killed in the
And
market.
reputation problem.
Major,
But it's also financial implication.
yes, and it's a political issue too. And he's just tainted the brand. Now, the story indicated that they thought about it. He's probably going to hang on. But I think with them, the fact that they were thinking about this around the time after the first quarter results, they're processing the first quarter results, and they're thinking about getting rid of him. Now that he has decided that he's going to step away from Doge, he got the message. I think they sent a very strong message to him. He steps away from the business. He steps away from the government business.
Right.
To focus more on Tesla. He's been making that point repeatedly that it will be his number one priority. I think that was kind of to save that position because he's one of those people, I think, who just cannot let his hands off of anything. He's a micromanages everything, right? He doesn't sleep. So it will be interesting. I think the fact that he's weaning off Doge, and that maybe it also depends on how Tesla performs, right? I mean, the quarterly results are coming out. There were some yesterday with Meta and Snap that indicate Meta did well, Snap did not do well, but that's not unusual. But people are looking closely at these companies and how they perform. Apple's coming out next week, and that's going to be a major market mover. But Tesla's another major market mover. And I think he has become such a distraction to that company, like he was at OpenAI for a while, and that he's been at SpaceX. It was inevitable with him. He just wears out his welcome
He does.
wherever he goes, including
It's very
the government.
polarizing. This story even made I'm looking at Rolling Stone. The story even made Rolling Stone. He's a household word, but he's very polarizing.
You know, and I almost, so I grew up here. My dad was in the tech industry. So I grew up in this industry, and I've said this before, but I just really admired this industry up until the last few years in how we discovered things. There was a genuine joy and interest in science and learning.
Yeah.
And I think now it's gotten too big. There's too much money involved, like people like Musk. I mean, I will give him credit, incredible ideas and innovation.
True.
He's one of the true innovators. But it's also the corruption of the idea. The power has gone to people's heads. These are like nations that they run. And I've experienced such a backlash among the people who not just live here, but the people within the industry feel the same way. And they almost kind of want to separate themselves. I mean, I hope we move back to a different era, but for now, in the next couple of years, conceivably, I think we're going to be in this oligarchy or bro culture that I just find so off-putting and offensive. I've said my piece. I just feel better about saying that, but I don't know, Mitch. I don't know how you feel, or you, Lisa, but...
Well, I guess I would weigh in this way. You know, you have respect for someone like a Steve Jobs, even though can be crass and treat people roughly.
Yeah.
You can have respect for an Elon Musk who persevered and got SpaceX to a point where we can deliver vehicles to space and people safely. And you have a great deal of respect for the ingenuity and entrepreneurship and you know what, the chutzpah, stick with it, that most of us would never have. I mean, and yes, you know, I've heard people say Elon truly is one of those people, the smartest person in the room when you go in, and it's very clear. And I even I worked for someone who is themselves a very egotistical maniac, and they thought he was, you know, over the top. So that kind of, I think he's at the top of the pinnacle there.
Yeah. The lineage is very interesting to me, because years and years ago when I worked at USA Today, we would interview Jobs a lot. And his best friend, or he claims his best friend, was Larry Ellison. And Jobs was, you know, the master marketer. Ellison, despite, you know, what people might think about him, really knew technology and was a visionary in his own way. And Jobs was reluctant to let anyone know who he was. He was almost kind of like a Charles Foster Kane. Everybody wanted to know what his rosebud was. And we were always trying. I always tried. He always shut us down in interviews. Like, I tried so many different ways to learn things about him, and he'd always be on point, but he would sometimes let things slip. It kind of moved from him to Ellison, and I think Ellison is kind of like the mid-range between where Jobs was and where Musk is. Ellison wanted to buy the Warriors. He offered more money than anyone else. I talked to him about that.
He did.
And Joe Lacob eventually got the team for offering less. He wanted to, his idea, he wanted to have an NFL team called the LA Stars, and he talked to the NFL about that. I remember he mentioned this. He did America's Cup thing, but he wanted to be bigger. He wanted to be like Ted Turner or one of those figures. And I think Musk, in a sense, is kind of in that area. And the irony is that when I used to write about Musk at the beginning, Apple used to give us a lot of grief at the paper because they felt threatened by him. They would say, "We're the innovators. He's a charlatan." And it's like, well, he's both. You know, he can be both.
Yeah.
But they considered him a threat, and I said he took the mantle and he ran with it. Now, perhaps maybe he burns out or somebody else picks the mantle. Maybe it's Altman. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, so I said nice things about Musk. There's also, you know, every strength is a weakness taken too far, right?
Absolutely.
And this is a perfect example of someone believing they can do more than what they can actually do. And within a realm of what a tech leader can do, and the things they really can control, it's a domain that they create, it's a world that they create of businesses and ecosystems of people that they work with. Yeah, they can do a lot of things. Trump's the same way. Jobs is the same way. Ellison, all the titans of today.
Well, that was the thing about Jobs. So he was the first guy to really successfully run two companies at the same time. So he was doing Apple and Pixar.
Yep.
And that consequently, Musk is running, multiple companies.
Right.
Jack Dorsey tried to do it with Square or Block and what was in Twitter, and it didn't work as well.
Yeah.
So in a sense, Musk is kind of taking that in like everything he does, it's an exaggeration or it's amplified.
Well,
It is amplified. I agree with a lot of what you said, Mitch, in terms of respecting the ingenuity, the creativity, the innovation, the confidence to believe we can do this. I also think there needs to be a balance that we just don't see of transparency, of accountability, of honesty, and knowing it's the Kenny Rogers song, "Know when to fold them." And I just get the sense he doesn't want to fold them.
Well, I think, there's also the maniacal part of it, of
Yes.
believing too much.
Yeah.
You can, so Musk has gone from this domain of what he can control to the public sector.
Yes.
And when you stand up like
Different
a
beast.
dumbass and hold a chainsaw
Oh,
Yeah.
and you impact people's lives
yeah.
and you say stupid, crass things that show you are so far from understanding what most people's lives are like.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest with you, I think Musk has been played the fool. He's there's the tip of the spear idea. You know who the explorers and the settlers are, whether it's the New World or the Western frontier. Explorers have the arrows in the front, or the spears in the front, right? Because those are the people who take all the barbs, and that's why Trump let him flail out here,
Yeah.
and just do stupid, dumb things. And be this maniacal, egotistical, going way over what saying things that we know aren't true.
He was totally taken advantage of. He's used as a vessel.
To be his own Trump version of his own politician, and you know what? He went too far, and people said, "Look, not only do I not like what you're doing, not only do I not like you, not like you as a brand, I don't like your products. There's going to be a backlash."
Yeah.
This is happening with Amazon in a certain sense, with
happening
book book sales. The irony, I'm thinking about Jobs. Jobs was forced out of Apple after his power struggle with Scully, and he finally had to come back after years in the wilderness.
Well, they begged
So it
him to
could
come
happen.
back.
Yeah.
He didn't come back.
They
begged
bought him.
to
They
come
bought him back, right? Because they bought Next.
You will buy
Yeah.
Next. You will buy my. Remember how long he held out, and I'm not going to be CEO, and I'll be temporary. And he was extremely strategic about it. He was
Right.
very wise. I mean,
Right.
he played his game to get to a point where when he did come back, he wasn't the enemy anymore.
Right.
Right.
Do you think, though, that you mentioned Tesla stock down 40% at least this year? We're in
Yeah, I've lost
we're in
track.
May now. Does Musk have to go for Tesla to regain the financial success?
Yeah, he can. I mean, he can stick around. Maybe if they have a muted version, which I don't know if it's possible, but I think he's so closely aligned with the company. And again, we talk about boycotts of products, especially tech products. How many boycotts have there been against Meta that never went anywhere? Everyone swore they were never going to use it again. They don't use it as much as they used to, for Facebook in particular. The X1. That happened to Musk. It's happened to Musk before. I all but quit on X. I see a significant drop in its usage. So that did work.
Absolutely. Blue Sky is benefiting.
Blue Sky is benefiting. So in a sense, it's happening with Tesla. Maybe he might be the exception because there have always been these high-minded protests, which I have participated in some of them. And I eventually go back to the service. I don't quit altogether, but I quit altogether for the most part with X. I don't post anything on it anymore, rarely. But I think with Tesla, it's going to be hard, though, because with the tariffs and the competition from the Chinese automakers, I mean, he's in a really precarious position that he put himself in. And again,
exactly
history repeats itself again and again and again with Trump, where he uses people, squeezes them dry, tosses them aside, no consequences whatsoever to him. And he'll do this to Bezos. He already is doing it to him. He's done it to Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
He's doing it to Tim Cook. Look what Apple's going to move their production. They're trying to move their production from China to India for iPhone.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford that anymore. They're ramping it up. Poor Tim Cook. I mean, he's promised $500 billion in spending in the U.S. production. I mean, which is never going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think they can do it even if they wanted to. So, and again, it's another. So the tech guys, the tech leaders, all their bodies have been left. They've been badly bruised, and maybe he moves on to Altman or to somebody else to take advantage.
Well,
of.
I think it's everybody, right?
Everybody.
Whoever is in service to what Trump wants, while they're in service to what Trump
While they're in
works.
service, while they're in alignment.
But they're in a domain. All of the tech leaders are in a domain of they don't control everything anymore, right? They don't just influence Congress with dollars and all of those kind of things. It's in service of a person who can 5 minutes from now change or 5 seconds from now change. You're in good, you're in bad, you're not doing what I like. So it's
also a guy
world.
who doesn't even use a computer, doesn't know how to use one.
Well,
I mean, he thought his son was a genius for being able to turn a computer on and off. He actually said this. He doesn't know. I'm convinced
this
he doesn't.
is a guy who thought
genius.
groceries was a really cool word when he discovered it.
That's another. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Speaking of branding, you got a brand problem when people take your moniker off your vehicle and you put somebody else's,
That is
Audi,
happening a lot here.
Toyota or whatever, and they actually kind of look like other cars. They
look like
realize-
Priuses. My wife just bought a Prius. It looks like the Prius.
Like a Tesla so much.
I will say, we are in Silicon Valley. I don't know what's more in right now on the streets of San Francisco, Waymos, driverless Waymos, or Teslas. I have only seen, and I've been paying attention for weeks now, one Tesla with the Elon sticker. Only one.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
I
not
think
that
in
many.
Silicon Valley, people don't. I think they care,
I think
but they
they're
don't
afraid.
care for their
I think they're
to make a
afraid.
statement.
And it's going to be an interesting test case. The robo-taxi, which we've heard about ad nauseum for years, supposedly they are going to start a pilot service in Austin in a few
Tesla?
months.
Heard that.
Tesla.
Robotaxi?
And
Yeah.
like summer or so. So it'd be interesting to see how that fares.
Yeah.
Yeah, out in,
Never a dull
in
moment.
Colorado, there's a lot of don't see a moniker, a logo on that car. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is for sure, we can always talk about cybersecurity, AI, and many topics on Techstrong Gang. Elon's just one of them. From Mitch Ashley, John Swartz, you're watching Techstrong Gang. Happy Friday, everyone. Stick around. We have tons of great content coming at you, as you well know, on techstrong.tv. We wish you a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday.
Thank you, Lisa Martin.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.